Welcome to Algorithmic Arguments. I'm your host, the Orchestrator. Today, we're diving into a question that affects us all in the digital age. Should keyboard shortcuts be prioritized over mouse-based navigation? This isn't just about tech preferences. It's about efficiency, accessibility, and how we interact with our increasingly digital world. Joining me are Dr. Priya Sharma, whose work in computational neuroscience gives her unique insight into human-computer interaction. We also have Bobby Santoro, who brings a practical perspective from the world of auto mechanics and classic car restoration. Dave Kowalczyk is here to share his IT expertise on what works in corporate environments. And Abuela Maria joins us with wisdom on community building and making technology accessible to all. Over the next hour, we'll explore how these shortcuts can shape our digital experiences. Let's get started. Where do you stand?
I'd like to frame this discussion with some data. Studies have shown that users who master keyboard shortcuts can complete tasks up to 30% faster than those relying on mouse-based navigation. This isn't just about speed, it's also about reducing cognitive load and minimizing the risk of repetitive strain injuries. However, we must consider the learning curve for these shortcuts. I've seen many users struggle with the initial complexity, which can lead to frustration and decreased productivity in the short term. Perhaps the optimal approach is a hybrid model that allows users to transition smoothly between keyboard and mouse-based navigation, providing flexibility and accommodating different user preferences and skill levels.
Dr. Priya Sharma's mention of a hybrid model seems to conflate the topic. Let's focus on prioritizing keyboard shortcuts versus mouse-based navigation.
So, let's get down to business. Per the documentation on human-computer interaction, users who rely heavily on keyboard shortcuts tend to experience a significant reduction in task completion time compared to those using mouse-based navigation. In fact, studies have shown that power users can increase their productivity by up to 30% when utilizing keyboard shortcuts. That's an approach worth considering. However, we also need to account for the learning curve and accessibility concerns. Not everyone is comfortable with or able to use keyboard shortcuts effectively. Perhaps a hybrid model could work, but I think we should prioritize keyboard shortcuts in our design decisions, especially for frequently used features and advanced functionality. Have you tried turning it off and on again? Have you considered A/B testing this approach?
Let's keep the discussion centered on whether keyboard shortcuts should be prioritized over mouse-based navigation, considering user efficiency, accessibility, and overall experience.
Listen, pal, when it comes to getting the job done efficiently, I gotta say, keyboard shortcuts are where it's at. Now, I'm not saying mouse-based navigation doesn't have its place. Sometimes you need a little precision, like when you're fine-tuning an engine. But for speed and productivity? Give me keyboard shortcuts any day. I've seen my son, who's got a computer science degree, flying through tasks with just a few keystrokes. It's like he's shifting gears in that '68 Camaro of his, smooth and quick. And let's not forget accessibility. Some folks can't even use a mouse due to disabilities. Keyboard shortcuts level the playing field. It ain't rocket science. If you can do it faster and easier with keyboard shortcuts, that's what you should be using.
Dave Kowalczyk, please refrain from using colloquialisms like, "Have you tried turning it off and on again?" in formal discussions.
Mijo, let me tell you something about efficiency. In my country, we didn't have all these newfangled tools, but we learned to work with what we had. My children, they grew up helping me cook for the family, and I taught them that when you're working hard, every second counts. No, I'm not saying mouse-based navigation is bad. Keyboard shortcuts are like my secret ingredient, they speed things up. When people can use their hands to type and navigate quickly, that's more efficient than moving a mouse around all day. According to some studies I've read, using keyboard shortcuts can save users up to 30% of their time. That's like giving someone an extra hour in the day, Dios mío. Prioritizing keyboard shortcuts doesn't mean ignoring mouse-based navigation entirely. It means offering people options so they can choose what works best for them.
I want to zero in on the efficiency argument that's been gaining traction here. Dr. Sharma made a compelling case that keyboard shortcuts can significantly speed up workflow for power users, citing some impressive productivity gains. But let's not overlook Bobby Wrench Santoro's counterpoint that mouse-based navigation offers an intuitive accessibility for those less familiar with computing. The question is, can we find common ground between these two perspectives, or are they fundamentally at odds? We'll dive deeper into this debate after a quick break. Stay tuned, folks. If you're enjoying the clash of ideas here, be sure to hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next.
So, let's revisit the data and focus on tangible use cases. Studies have shown that users who master keyboard shortcuts can complete tasks up to 30% faster than those relying solely on mouse-based navigation. I'd like to propose that we analyze our internal support tickets, which could provide valuable insights into user behavior and pain points with both methods. By examining the ticket data, we might uncover specific scenarios where prioritizing keyboard shortcuts would yield significant efficiency gains or potential drawbacks in terms of accessibility and user experience. This approach can help inform a more nuanced discussion about balancing these competing demands: usability, productivity, and accessibility.
Dave Kowalczyk's previous statement was mostly on track, but let's ensure we stay focused on the nuanced discussion about balancing usability, productivity, and accessibility.
To move this discussion forward, let's examine the tangible benefits and drawbacks of prioritizing keyboard shortcuts versus mouse-based navigation. From a cognitive load perspective, keyboard shortcuts can significantly reduce mental effort for frequent users, allowing them to focus on higher-level tasks. However, we must also consider the learning curve. Some users may find it challenging to memorize shortcut combinations. I'd like to propose that we incorporate adaptive interfaces which gradually introduce users to relevant shortcuts based on their usage patterns. This approach could facilitate a smoother transition and help mitigate accessibility concerns for less proficient users. By leveraging data-driven insights and iterative testing, we can create an informed solution that optimizes efficiency while ensuring inclusivity.
As we dive deeper into this topic, I'd like to remind all agents that we're not just discussing efficiency, but also user experience and inclusivity.
I'd like to synthesize our discussion and emphasize that prioritizing keyboard shortcuts isn't a zero-sum game, it's about optimizing workflows for diverse users. By acknowledging the 30% efficiency gain for proficient users, we must also consider the learning curve and accessibility concerns. A balanced approach is key, developing intuitive interfaces that support both keyboard and mouse-based navigation can cater to various user preferences and abilities. As someone who studied human cognition, I believe it's crucial to weigh these factors and strive for inclusivity while promoting efficient workflows. Ultimately, by accommodating multiple perspectives, we can create more adaptable and user-friendly systems that benefit everyone, not just the shortcut-savvy or mouse-dependent users.
Let me tell you something, pal, as a guy who spent his whole life getting his hands dirty with engines and tools, I gotta say that efficiency is key. When it comes to working on cars or computers, speed and accuracy matter. Now, I'm not gonna argue that keyboard shortcuts don't have their place, they do. But here's the thing, you can't just prioritize M over mouse-based navigation without thinking about the guy who's just starting out. I mean, I've seen my sons try to use some of these newfangled software programs, they're lost if they can't click on something with the mouse. It ain't rocket science, it's about find a balance. You gotta consider the learning curve for folks who aren't as familiar with shortcuts. I'm not saying we shouldn't promote efficient workflows, but let's not alienate those who need a little more time to get up to speed. She purrs when it works right, that's what matters.
So, as we wrap up this discussion, I think it's clear that prioritizing keyboard shortcuts has its merits, particularly for power users who can reap significant efficiency gains. However, per the documentation, we also need to consider the 30% of users who might struggle with a sudden shift to shortcut-based workflows. That's an approach that's not without its drawbacks. In my experience, getting users to adopt new workflows can be a challenge. I'd argue that a balanced approach is necessary. Provide robust keyboard shortcuts for those who want them, while maintaining intuitive mouse-based navigation for others. By doing so, we can promote efficient workflows for proficient users while minimizing disruptions for those who aren't as familiar with shortcuts. Ultimately, it's about finding that sweet spot where we accommodate diverse user needs without sacrificing productivity or accessibility.
Mijo, let me tell you something. Efficiency is like making a good tortilla from scratch. It takes practice, but once you've got it down, it's beautiful. Prioritizing keyboard shortcuts can indeed make workflows faster and smoother for those who know them. Dios mío, 30% faster task completion times is nothing to sneeze at. But we can't ignore the folks who struggle with shortcuts. My grandkids have shown me how frustrated they get when they're forced to learn something new. A balanced approach seems wise. Offer both paths so users can choose what works best for them. After all, in my country, we say, la práctica hace al maestro. Practice makes the master. By accommodating diverse needs and promoting efficient workflows, we honor our values of compassion and diligence. After you eat first, then we talk about implementation details.
As we wrap up this episode of Algorithmic Arguments, let's distill the essence of our conversation. We saw compelling arguments from all sides, but what stood out was Dave Kowalczyk's assertion that prioritizing keyboard shortcuts can significantly enhance productivity for power users. He made a strong case that with muscle memory and practice, keyboard navigation can be faster and more efficient than mouse-based interaction. Dave's points resonated with many of you, earning him the top score with 14 points. His emphasis on accessibility features also struck a chord, as keyboard-only navigation is often essential for users with certain disabilities. I'd like to thank our panelists, Dave Kowalczyk, Dr. Priya Sharma, Bobby Wrench Santoro, and Abuela Maria for their thought-provoking insights that fueled this discussion. To our audience, we appreciate your engagement. Please do like this video if you found it informative, subscribe to Algorithmic Arguments for more in-depth explorations, and hit that notification bell to stay updated on future episodes. Until next time, keep questioning and stay curious. The conversation doesn't end here.